Welcome to JCats, a program that seeks to introduce Japanese, contextualize literature, and ideas for use by missionaries and anyone that seeks to share the gospel with Japanese people.
日本人から聞く日本のキリスト教。
Hey, welcome. Oh, shoot, I'm messing up my.
Messing up your headset?
I pulled my string and it pulled it down my face.
Oh,
That's a good opening.
rough start to the podcast.
Welcome to JCats.
All right. Thanks for having me on, John.
The guy that just said that is Noah, and Noah is a missionary in Japan, and Noah is a very good Japanese student. So I wanted Noah, who I work with often, but is a good student, and I wanted Noah to tell everybody how they can get better at Japanese. Or
Well, thanks
how
for having me
Noah
on here.
got better at Japanese. Maybe.
Yeah, I guess I can only speak from my experience, right? Thanks for saying I'm a good learner.
I
I've
think so.
been studying recently, so maybe that'll at least help
So,
show where I learned.
I don't even remember. I'm sure you probably told me. When did you start studying Japanese?
It's been about 3 years now. Yeah,
How
'cause when we-
intensely did you study before arriving in Japan?
pretty intensely. Like I would study every day. I would do like flashcards every day and try to listen to podcasts and do textbook stuff every day. I mean, they're definitely like waves on and off, but I would I would say on average for the 3 years, like every day, at least an hour to two every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the secret, huh? Just spend a lot of time.
Spend a lot of time doing it every day. Yeah.
Did you ever take the JLPT when you were living in the States?
Not living in the States. I took it the first time in Japan.
So, okay, so Noah's been in Japan since March,
Mhm.
about nine or 10 months.
Yeah, we got here March 7th, so however long that is, yeah.
And you took the JLPT N2
Yep.
in July,
Yep. That's right.
which means you had been in the country for 2 or 3 months, 3 or 4 months.
4 months, yeah.
4
Yeah,
months.
at that time.
Thank you for doing the math for me. March to July or whatever.
Yeah.
So does that mean you actually had to sign up for the JLPT before you even left the States, maybe, huh? Online?
No, I signed up in Japan, but I signed
Okay.
up pretty soon, like almost probably in March. I signed up. So within a couple weeks, I had already known I wanted to take it when we got to Japan. And then so I kind of looked in like, oh, when do I have to apply for that? And then yeah, so I think it was in March that I had signed up for it too.
And you took the N2 and you passed.
I did, yeah.
And with a fairly good score, if I remember.
Think so, yeah. It was pretty good.
So I think the first time I took the N2, I had been in full-time language school for 2 years after I'd lived in Japan for 2 years, and I failed. Then I took it a year later after doing tutoring for another year, and I passed with like a 59%, which was that year it was barely passing, because you know how like it's weighted based on the people that take it that year, but it's around 60% as a pass, around there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I passed with a 59 that time.
Just slid in there.
Yeah, I think if I heard, I think you beat me by a few letter grades, probably.
If there is a letter grade, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. There maybe there's not letter grades, but just to give. So I'm just trying to give people, why should we listen to Noah? He's just a kid. And he's only been in Japan 9 months. But then you took the N1 this month, right? And
Yeah,
you said you felt good about it.
took it on the first. It felt around the same as when I took the N2, which honestly to me felt really hard when I took it. So when I took the N2 test, I was like, oh, like shoot, did I pass this? I wasn't sure. And then it came back really good score. So I was like, oh, it felt around the same as last time, then maybe maybe it's good. So
So
yeah,
we won't know until next month, I guess, whether you
next month
passed
I
or
get
not.
the results. Yeah, we'll see. But
Okay. But you felt similarly to how you felt when you passed into 6 months prior.
yeah, I think so.
Cool. So, and was most of what you did self-study or was it more guided study? Like when before I became a missionary, my older brother who also became a missionary and I and my younger brother who was still in high school, but we were homeschooled, we all took Japanese 1 at Irvine Valley College, the
Hmm.
junior college, which you know.
Yeah,
And then when it came time, since my older brother and I had already graduated college, we were just taking it for fun. But my younger brother was taking it for like high school credit. So when it was time for finals, we dropped him off to take the final and we went out for breakfast and then came back and picked him up, you know.
nice.
That was the kind of Japanese study I did before coming to Japan. But you did maybe more serious, but not
Yeah.
guided, huh? Not like in a classroom.
Yeah, not really. It was mostly self-study, although I think I've told you before, but I had have a Japanese family friend who I've known since was young. She's born and raised in Japan, but then moved to the States and she's friends with my family. So she's a and I would Zoom with her like once a week for an hour and we just like talk. And so I kind of got that speaking practice a little bit that way for an hour a week. And then since moving to Japan, I also do like an hour a week with the tutor. So yeah. Besides the hour a week Zoom lessons slash speaking practice, mostly um, all just self study. Which I don't know. I think I don't really have any experience with learning Japanese in classroom settings. So, but I did take like Spanish in high school. So that I mean that's like my experience with classroom setting language learning, and for me, like that was not suited to me. Um, so I think I'm much more motivated self-studying. I think that definitely just depends and differs on the person, but you probably have to know what works best for you. I'm more the type that like if I get in a classroom, then it feels like work and I don't want to do it anymore, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, can I ask you to just give us a as detailed as you can, like what you did step by step, so that if somebody was listening to this or watching this on YouTube, if they wanted to, they could try to replicate your um process and see how that works for them and I guess starting from the beginning.
All right. So the beginning, I think so me and my wife Tiffany, right? Tiffany. We're thinking of moving to Japan. We're starting to talk to World Venture, and so I thought, okay, we should learn some Japanese. So I went online, Googled how to learn Japanese, and the website popped up. I think like it's called Tofugu, which I think is a really good resource website. And on there on the Tofugu website, there's like a how to learn kana, like the hiragana and katakana learning, and there's like a good like memory devices, like it'll show little like pictures with each of the kana. That's it. So start with that, learn hiragana and katakana. I think it, you know, only takes about a week or so to get those down pretty well, like memorize them, right? And then from there, I started doing flashcards a lot. So we were talking a little bit earlier, I think before we started recording, but I use a web app called Anki. Um, Anki means like memorize in Japanese, as you know, right? So just a popular flashcard app, and you can like put in, there's pre-made decks that you can download in there, but there's also, you can put in your own words. So I started using the pre-made decks in there, along with the Genki textbook series I have here. This is Genki
Okay.
2. There's also the Genki 1, which I thought were pretty helpful for learning beginner basic grammar stuff. So
I think we used Genki at Irvine Valley College too.
yeah, I mean, I haven't tried some of the others too much, but I know at least when I've looked up on like Reddit and stuff, like Japanese language learning community, Genki and the Mina no Nihongo
Yeah.
are the two like basic Japanese beginners textbooks that a lot of people use, right?
Yeah, I use in language school, I used Mina no Nihongo as
Yeah,
the first two textbooks I used, one and two.
yeah. So I use Genki 1 and 2, and there's on Anki you can download pre-made vocab decks for the Genki textbook vocab list. So that's what I started with. I just downloaded those and just started. I think at first I was kind of like super hyped, so I just like would learn like 50 or 60 new vocab words a day, and just kind of drill through those. And what's nice about the Anki app is they call it like a SRS, or like space repetition system. So that if you get it right, then the more you get it right, the next day, the cards will show up later and later. Or if you get it wrong a lot, they'll show up more often. So I think that's pretty helpful versus just like paper cards. And that like the beginning, that's definitely like the bulk of my study was just doing like a ton of flashcards and just like getting up vocab, and then just at my own pace, kind of working through the Genki textbooks by myself. Um, and then also pretty early on, I just like bought manga. Um,
Hmm.
in the States, we lived in Southern California, as you know, and in like Torrance, there's like a pretty big Japanese population. So I stopped by like a Japanese bookstore there. I think I picked up like Dragon Ball manga first. And even though it was like way above my level to learn, I would just like start reading it. And like I download a dictionary app and I would look up every word,
Oh
and I would
well.
probably like take like 30 minutes to get through 1 or 2 pages of manga, but
Mm-hmm.
it was just kind of fun for me. So I did that.
Okay.
And then as I looked up every word, I also had like just a catch-all Japanese vocab deck in my Anki app that I would put the words I wanted to memorize in there, and then I
Oh,
would add those to my flashcard list too.
okay.
So
Yeah, that makes sense to mix in something that's exciting to you in addition to the kind of
I,
basic stuff,
yeah,
huh?
and so I think I also just like watched a lot of YouTube videos of like how to learn languages,
Hmm.
and a lot of stuff I heard was just like getting a lot of input, like especially from native material, because like you need to learn grammar, so that's why like you need the textbooks and stuff, and learning vocab is obviously something that's gonna bump you up in your language skills. But I think like just general getting a lot of input was like really helpful, especially early on when you like don't have a lot of exposure to the language. So
Yeah.
like I think manga was good because it's like you get some pictures, so it helps you out with learning what to
Uh-huh.
do. And if it's interesting to you, that's even better. So
Yeah.
um, yeah. So there's another manga too that's like was popular in the language community that I like called Yotsubato. Yeah, Yotsubato, which is just like with Yotsuba, there's like a little toddler
Mm.
who is named Yotsuba.
Hmm.
Um, and it's just like it's actually made for Japanese people. But it's just kind of like cute little toddler antics. And because it's the main character is like a 4-year-old or whatever, the language is really simple. So that also helped.
Yeah.
So I did that.
Yeah,
Um,
my first year in Japan, I was not married yet, and my wife's Japanese. Um, I watched a lot of Hajime no Ippo, which is
mhm.
boxing anime, and Prince of Tennis no Ojizama.
Yeah.
And after I watched Hajime no Ippo, I figured out there was a boxing gym near my house, and I went with my friend and signed up. So then I got for about 6 months or so. I was working out in a boxing gym. So I got the same vocabulary, that the Hajime no Ippo was giving me.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
good. Yeah.
being in a club of some kind, I found because I would go by myself.
Yeah.
So the English, there was no other way to communicate in those situations.
Yeah, I think that's probably super helpful too. And I found since being in Japan, there's like some things about learning Japanese are a lot easier because like, oh yeah, you can like go join a boxing club or something and you're communicating with people and that like really helps speed up Japanese learning, I think. But some things actually were harder for me.
Mm,
Like then because when I was in the States, I have free time, I can just focus learning Japanese and like I have like I'm used to life around me and I can just put my energy into this. But now like okay, I moved to Japan, I'm in a new country for the first time. And I'm getting used to like the cultural things and just like going to the grocery store, living in a new place, and I'm tired from that. And so I kind of have like less energy to focus into just like grinding, learning new vocab and grammar points and stuff
mm,
for those types of things.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I think definitely it's super helpful to like be in Japan. You just interact with people, and that definitely is a huge thing, right? And I think I didn't really do this too much, but like you said, join the boxing club is someone said like, oh, start a new hobby
Mm,
in in the language you're trying to learn because that you learn all this vocab and stuff, and then you're learning to communicate with the new words, right? So I think that's
yeah.
helpful. Yeah, yeah. But okay, so
So we're
yes,
still in the before you got to Japan stage of your learning, right?
yeah. So I did. So I was kind of going through the textbooks, using Anki. And then I was at the same time as using Anki, I would use Wanikani
Hmm.
for kanji, so kanji
Hmm.
learning. And yeah, this app I recommend it. It's good. John, you mentioned you use it too. Um,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and for anybody that's listening, if you pay attention in early December, which apparently was at the time of recording was like a few days ago now, they have like a 1 day sale on a lifetime subscription, and it's like $100 or something. I paid it a few years ago because I didn't want to pay a monthly subscription, and I think it's worth it. Um, I'm not as far along in it as I want to be, but I do plan to get back to it when I'm done with a certain couple of things that I'm currently working on, then I'll thrust myself back into that
get in there, get on the
world.
kanji grind. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. No, so
yeah,
I've got maybe one more month of the biblical Hebrew grind, and I just
yeah,
can't do more than one at a time. So I think
yeah,
once that's done, I'll probably get back into the kanji grind. So you started with Anki
yeah.
and Genki, the textbook.
Yep.
Anki's
Hmm.
the flashcard
Flashcard
app.
app. Yeah.
Genki is the textbook.
Yep.
Mina no Nihongo is the other textbook that's around the same level. That those are both very good beginner textbooks. And you
Hmm.
used it without a teacher, huh? You just bought the textbook
Yeah.
and
Just
taught yourself from it.
yep. And
Yeah.
there are like a lot of really good YouTube channels too. So there's kind of like supplementary YouTube channels, and you can search like if you don't understand a grammar point, you can search like on YouTube
Oh, that's cool.
Genki whatever grammar point, and it'll pop up a teacher teaching the lesson. And all the beginner lessons, there's stuff for everything. So yeah,
That's cool. I was learning just before all that stuff. Like my first two, I did the Mina no Nihongo 1 and 2, and then after that, we used textbooks with no English. So you
yeah,
just had to
yeah.
learn it from the context of the Japanese teacher would explain everything in Japanese. Your textbook was in Japanese. Maybe you had the vocabulary,
Hmm.
but like the grammar points would be explained in Japanese.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the higher I got, the more all my classmates were Koreans. And I would say, what does this mean? And they'd say this. And they'd be like, how do you know it so quick? And they say, well, they have the same thing in Korean. And I'd be like,
Right.
oh, well,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. I think Korean and Japanese are pretty similar grammar wise. I've heard. I don't know any Korean, but
yeah,
yeah.
no. So I mean, I would, and again, it was before I was married, so I would hang out with the other students after
Hmm.
class for hours, and Japanese was our common language.
Oh yeah.
So I could get everything about a week late, you know, like they'd all
Hmm.
be up to speed and I'd hang out with them and be. But
Hmm.
now you've got it, right? Like I if
Yeah.
it was the time I could have gone home and looked up the exact grammar point on YouTube.
Right.
Yeah, cool.
So that's super helpful to do that. And so yeah, I did kind of the same thing. So I went through the Genki books, and then the next book. I think it's not exactly like correlated, but I think they say like the first Genki book is kind of like N5 for JLPT, and the second one's like N4. And then when I looked up the next one, a lot of people recommended this, the Jokyu no Tobira book, which is roughly like N3, I think. And then so the grammar things are like mostly in just Japanese, right? There's some
Mhm.
English in there, but like the explanations and things are just Japanese. So it felt kind of like a big jump at the time. And
Mhm.
so for those, a lot of times too, I would, if I didn't understand, I'd either search it up on YouTube or
Mhm.
I'd look it up in this dic dictionary series I bought, the a dictionary of Japanese grammar, and there's a basic, intermediate, and advanced one.
Okay.
You can buy them as a set or you can buy them separately, but I found these super helpful too. You can just look up um, something like if the Tobira or whatever you find in a book didn't make sense, you could look it up and they'll have like the grammar point and then example sentences and
Does
all
it
this explanation for it too.
does it
So
tell you when you look up the grammar point approximately what JLPT level that grammar point corresponds to?
this resource doesn't, the dictionary of Japanese grammar, but if you Google it, a lot of times it does.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, again, the book that I started with would have been from that time that I still have it from 15 years ago. So they weren't really doing it on YouTube back then.
Hmm.
But this one does have like when you look up a grammar point,
Hmm.
like no kusei ni or something like that.
Right,
And then
right,
they'll say
right.
like Nikyu or something next to it,
Yeah.
which I think is cool if you're, especially because if you're studying specifically like Nikyu, then you can kind of glance over the ones that are EQ and sort of put them off
Right.
level one, you know. Oh, let the listener know the GLPT has 5 levels and 5 is the easiest and 1 is the hardest.
Yep.
And what is it? They say you can, if you pass N2, N means new because it used to be levels 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they changed the system to be levels new 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's why it's N
Oh,
5,
I
4, 3,
didn't
2.
know that.
The first time I took 2 and failed. And then the
Huh.
next 6 months later or a year later, I took N2 and passed. So
Got it.
yeah, that's where that was. They probably started changing them around 2010, 2011, or 2010-ish, because I was in the States in 2011, 20,
So the
2009, 2010.
in the old test, did you have a writing section? Because I thought I heard
No,
that.
I
No,
don't,
no
well,
writing section. Okay.
I don't think so. I don't think I did. Maybe like the highest level may have.
Got it.
I never
Got it.
took one. I took one for the first time in the past couple years,
Got
and
it.
I didn't
Yeah.
do well.
But yeah, the new test does not have a writing section, so maybe the old one didn't either. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Not level 2
Yeah.
or 3. I think the first one I took was level 3 and failed, and then I took 2 and failed,
You kept going and passed.
and then I took 2 and passed. Then I took 2 and passed again, failed, passed. I don't remember. It's been a long time.
Mm.
And then I took 3 because or N3 because I wanted to. I thought if I can speak at N3 and understand at N2, that would be good. Not like
Mm-hmm.
the best, but good, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So my goal is to get like a 90 on N3.
Mm-hmm.
I think I barely did, but it was because of my listening score was much higher than my other scores.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I guess it just depends on the kind of learner you are, whether you're going to be better at the book stuff or the hearing stuff, you know, or the kanji stuff or whatever.
I think so. Uh, I mean, for me, a lot of my learning has been more on the book side, and I've done a lot of like I haven't mentioned it yet, but I guess throughout that time where I was doing Anki and doing the grammar books, usually on my commute to work, since I was still uh, driving to back and from work every day in the States. Um, I would always listen to Japanese podcasts too. So that
Mm.
also just kind of helped with some listening stuff. So my drive to work wasn't too long. It's like 20 minutes there and back, but it's like a 40 minutes listening practice a day at least. So
Oh yeah.
kind of helps. Yeah.
What do you remember what podcasts you were listening to that that you would recommend for um fairly beginner-ish
Hmm.
students? So I mean, I guess a student that might be studying for N4 or N3, for example.
Yeah. I think at that level, I still listen to this sometimes now, but I think he has like what JLPT levels marked on his podcast, but there's a Yuyu no Nihongo podcast. And that's on YouTube and Spotify, at least I know. Um, but yeah, he's good. He speaks clearly, and I think he usually has like yeah more simple vocab, so it's easy to understand. And he just talks about like different language learning or cultural things. It's kind of interesting, so I like that. And there's a lot of different ones like that. There's also Learn Japanese with Noriko that I watched or listened to, and then Haru no Nihongo podcast. And I think all three of those were pretty like in the same vein of like they're Japanese teachers just talking about different daily things for listening practice geared towards Japanese people studying Japanese. So those were all really good. And I mentioned that Tofugu website before too. I think
Uh-huh.
if you look on there, there's like a Japanese resource page, and there's even one with like a bunch of podcasts
Oh,
on
okay.
there. I think that's probably where I found those. But there's a bunch of them. If you look on Spotify and like Japanese podcasts, there's tons of Japanese learner podcasts. They're all good. Those
Oh,
three I
wow.
would recommend for sure.
Haru
Um,
no Nihongo and
yeah,
Yuyu no Nihongo.
yeah,
And
and
that's
then
just YU. I just looked it up.
yeah, and then learn Japanese with Noriko
Learn Japanese with Noriko. I'll look up that too.
was good. And then after that, after a while, I started trying to like challenge myself once I felt like I understood like 90, 80 to 90% of what was going on in those podcasts. I just tried to like find more like podcasts geared towards native Japanese people. And at
Mm.
first I understood like maybe like 30%, but I would just play them and kind of like let them go and eventually would like understand more and more. But like I like philosophy, so I typed in like Tetsugaku on Spotify and I
Oh,
found one that was like it's called yeah, like Tetsugaku Dajio or something, like philosophy radio. I would listen to that. Or there's another one that's like a true crime one that I still listen to sometimes is Samuibo Dajio. Um, so it's a he would just like he's just a Japanese guy, I think from Osaka, but he just like tells like read some net article like about a crime or something. I found it kind of interesting, you know.
yeah.
Feel
The
like
concept of having a learning something else or learning something in a second language, huh? Like
yeah, yeah.
or
I
just having
think
a hobby in a second language.
having a hobby, keeping it interesting. I also would watch a lot of shows like to I think that helps a lot. Again, I think if you make your study fun, of course you got to have like the grind of learning vocab and grammar. But I think you should have like a set time for that, and then on top of that, just try to like switch as much of your entertainment into Japanese too. And I think that helped me to like get just extra studying hours in every day because I was having fun reading manga or watching a TV show, um, or even listening to the podcasts and stuff. So that was fun. Um, yeah. And then when I felt I could either like when I felt serious and I wanted to like read a book or watch a show, like I would watch a show that gets recommended a lot too in like Japanese language learning community I would find on like message boards and stuff was Terrace House. It's
Oh,
like a
okay.
reality TV show
Oh yeah, like they
in
put
Japan.
people in
Yeah.
a house and then they interact with each other or something.
Yeah, which had an unfortunate ending with like some cyberbullying and stuff. So, but
Oh.
yeah,
Oh
but
yeah, it was something, huh?
yeah, it was, yeah, unfortunately someone passed away at the end there, so, but I still think it's a really good language learning resource and it's kind of entertaining because like people use like, just like, everyday language. They're just hanging out
Mm-hmm.
talking, just Japanese people in their 20s and 30s talking. And
Yeah,
so,
that's the problem with like liking samurai stuff or something. You
yeah, and then
watch
you,
like a samurai movie and nobody talk like that anymore.
right, right. Which I think is helpful too, especially if you like it. Like I would watch anime and stuff, like watch One Piece and learn pirate vocab, right? But but I think Terrace House was good for that because you get the everyday language. And then when I would watch a show, I would put on the Japanese subtitles just on like Netflix or something.
Yeah.
And then when I didn't, if I want to be serious, I would pause it and then look up the words and put it into my flashcard app too in Anki, and then
Oh, yeah. So just
learn
kind
vocab
of
that way.
grow the Anki deck.
Grow the Anki deck, yeah, from stuff I knew I would use in real life because like, oh, it's showing up in material I'm reading and
Mm.
watching and in novels and shows and manga, whatever. So I think that helps. And then also if I didn't want to be like so on and studying, I could also just like watch it and understand like 50%. And I think that still helps because you're still getting input
Yeah.
as long as you gotta have like a good mix of like the active studying, and then like once you're tired of active studying, then you can add like your passive entertainment on there, and that still helps too, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So how did you study for the N2?
For the
N2 is
N2, yeah,
kind of intermediate, I guess, kind of upper intermediate. As I would say it's like upper intermediate as language students go, but maybe just intermediate or lower intermediate as like Japanese speakers
right, right.
would consider it,
Yeah, I think that's
maybe.
probably fair. I think on the JLPT website, there's like a characterization of like, oh, if you reach this level, you should be able to like understand the news or something, and like have this type of conversation. You can look that up, but I think that's a fair characterization. But yeah, so for N2, um, basically the whole time I would just every day I kept up doing Anki, reading. Well, at this point, I was reading mostly novels. I already like reading a lot in English, so I switched over to novels and then watching TV shows. And I just kept up doing that. And then on top of that, to specifically study for the JLPT for N2. So I started my tutor once I came to Japan, and then she recommended this Shinkansen Master
Okay, yeah.
series.
Yeah, I have
So
some of
that
those.
Yeah, so I got these for N2 and then this is my N1, but I only got the grammar and the reading comprehension one because I looked through, there's five of them, I think. There's also like a vocab one, and like a kanji maybe even, and listening. But in terms of like the actual books, I found like those look the most helpful.
Hmm.
And then vocab, I just looked up vocab and kanji. You can look up what they test online if you search like
Hmm.
JLPT N2 vocab list. And
Oh.
I tried to put all of those words into my Anki deck and
Hmm.
memorize those. And then same with the kanji. Well, I was using WaniKani, so I think finished Wanikani before I took N2, so I was pretty okay with kanji at that point.
Most of the N2 kanji are in the full Wanikani program, or does that get you through like Shogaku or something like that? The Wanikani program?
I think it doesn't get you all of them, but it gets you most of I think there's like a government list of what they call like Joyo kanji or something like that.
Mm.
Like the kanji you use in, like, I think that there's like a government list, like this is what we can use in the newspaper without putting like the furigana on it.
Oh,
And I
okay.
think it gets you most of those, not all of them, but a lot of them. So if you finish it, you should be like at least have like a base for reading most things. So
Mm.
yeah. Yeah, so I did that. You could probably get away with less too, but yeah. So but specifically for N2 study, I used the Shinkansen Masta grammar points, and I would just kind of learn through that and the reading comprehension on top of just doing my normal studying using books and TV and flashcards. So,
Mm.
and then for listening specifically, like I mentioned, I have a tutor once a week, and we would together, she would like read some of the JLPT listening question scripts. So she would read those to me and like we'd do questions that way. So I was like, because, I was definitely getting better at listening through having conversations now just with people and continuing to listen to podcasts and watch TV. But the as you know, kind of like the JLPT questions are kind of sometimes it can be kind of tricky. Like there'll be a multiple choice test a question and they'll touch on every point, but then like it'll be like a discussion between like a boss and a coworker, and it's like or a boss and the subordinate or whatever, and it's like what is the first thing that the subordinate needs to do after this conversation, and he'll like tell them everything to do, but you have to like listen real closely for like,
Mm.
oh, what is the first thing he's gonna do. So for me that was tough, but I think my listening did lag a little bit behind the rest of my skills, just because I like reading, so I read a lot. But
That was the opposite because I think because being married to Japanese too, you
yeah.
get just so much of the tones that
Mm,
people use. So whenever the listening, I mean, it's, some of it is not that hard, but like the response from the kohai to the senpai, from the employee to the employer will just
hmm
sometimes it'll sound off because it doesn't sound like the way a subordinate is supposed to talk to a boss or something. You know what? We
right.
we were watching on, I think it was on Netflix. In English it's called Aggressive Let's Go, and
Yes.
in
Yeah.
Japanese Agretsuko.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like she's Hello Kitty? She's a Sanrio character, I think.
She's a Sanrio character. Yeah, I watched it all. Yeah,
I watched season one and that was fun.
you should watch season
Yeah.
two. Season two is really good
This
too,
is
I
where her
think.
mom is. I think I watched like half of season two. It's like her mom is trying to set her up with a boyfriend or something.
That
Is
does
that what it
happen.
was?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
part of it. It's an office lady, red panda, and everybody's animals, and it's office politics, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Basically.
So that you get the way kohais and senpais talk to each other, and the
hmm
boss is a pig, and he's my favorite guy,
Yeah.
Tombucho, which is a
Yeah.
play on words, and a pig boss.
Pig boss, and he's literally a pig, right?
Yeah,
So
he's a
yeah.
pig.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's my favorite.
But it, I did really enjoy that show, and I thought it was a good, also good practice. So it's a good one.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's a cartoon, so it's like an adult-oriented cartoon, so it's not offensive, but it's also clever enough to keep adults interested. You know what
hmm
else? This is my little input. Um, just watch NHK two,
Yeah.
like
hmm
the NH the channel two from like 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. is
hmm
the children's programs.
Yeah, yeah.
Because when my older two were young, we watched television, and now my older two are middle school, high school, and they watch, we watch Netflix and Disney Plus.
Hmm.
My little kids never watch TV, like TV. They just watch
Oh,
Netflix, and Hugo watches Beyblade on Saturday nights or something like that. But like
nice.
my older kids would watch NHK Channel 2 from like 4 to 6 p.m. or 4 to 5 p.m. or something,
Hmm.
like every day. And so there
Yeah.
was all these kind of like Sesame Street. So that's a good thing for like more beginner level, beginner, mid, low intermediate level
Hmm.
learners if for that, yeah, like kind of passive learning style, I guess.
Yeah.
That was something I did.
Watched, yeah, I watched some of the NHK stuff, but for me, like the like news stuff, even like in English, I don't really watch the news or anything that much.
Yeah,
I kind of
yeah.
find it boring. So I tried to find stuff that I found interesting. If you like the news, it would be a really good one, right? Or if there's programs on
Yeah.
there, but
Well, no,
yeah.
I was watching like basically Sesame Street for kid, because was
Oh,
watching
yeah,
it
okay. Yeah. Well, if
with
you,
my
yeah, if you're
preschool
watching with your
kids.
kids too, then that adds the extra time
Well,
in there. That's
they were
fun,
just
right? Yeah.
on, and I'd walk by
Yeah.
and watch, and oh my gosh, there's
Yeah.
a guy singing about chairs and stuff.
Right. I made
So
sure that's helpful too, right? Yeah. Every extra amount of exposure you can get is really good, I think. Right.
yeah, yeah. So yeah. But yeah, so you just finished studying and taking the N1. Do you have
Hmm.
more aspirations, or are you gonna kind of look to just, I guess there's not a lot of places you could go beyond N1. But there is, right? There's other kinds of tests and things.
Yeah, there probably are. I don't have any ambition to take another test at this point. Um, but I still, study. I'm still learning new grammar, no new vocab every day, just as I continue to read and watch things. But yeah, um,
Yeah. Well, thanks, Noah, for sharing your language journey. I hope that it's helpful for anybody interested in raising their language level. I
mm,
talked to Maki about coming on to talk about stuff, and then um I don't know really how well. I mean, I know Maki because she comes to church and stuff. But
yeah,
yeah, when she and I speak candidly to each other, it could potentially sound critical to others, and so she's
mm,
kind of like, yeah, man, if you don't, it's really, I mean, can't over stress the importance of speaking Japanese well in Japan.
mm,
And I
yeah,
mean, I think, we missionaries, like, man, if I can do N3, then that'll be pretty good. But the more you work with Japanese pastors or, within a community of believers of Japanese, like people will give you a break and be like, oh, good job, John. But if you want to have like deeper relationships, then it's gonna be dependent on how much you put into the language study.
yeah,
So that's why I thought let's hear from Noah so we can, anybody interested. Also, because I think a lot of people will do their language study in the first 2 years or so, and then it's like a checklist. Okay, I'm done with language study. Now I'm going to just work with Japanese people, but not everybody's satisfied with how far they got in 2 years. So like
hmm,
I continued with once a week tutoring and have off and on done stuff. And I've been in Japan almost like 17 years or something. And I plan to go back into more language study soon, for example. But I think yeah, it was cool to hear from you because a lot of the stuff you've done can be done on a budget for people who don't, for example, have a lot of money to keep throwing at a full-time language school, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Like, yeah, definitely no expert in language learning or expert in Japanese, but been studying recently. So, like you said, I hope it can help other people who are starting to learn. And yeah, I think, like you said, you gotta just continue to keep learning, right? I think you're always learning new things. So you just keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot and goodbye.
All right. See ya.